joining me today, and here is today's card, and it is in fact a gift card holder. So stay with me, I'll show you how I made it. Here are my supplies. My card base is a piece of white card. It's 10 inches by 5 inches. I've scored and folded it at the 5-inch mark and also at 3.5 inches in from the left hand side, but that is going to be the bottom of my card because it's going to be 10th fold. I've got two other pieces of white card, and this one is 5 by 3.5 and this one is 5 by 1.5 inches. I've got two pieces of Coastal Cabana. This is 6 inches by, where are my notes? 6 inches by 4.5, and this one is 6 inches by 2.5. I've got some Melon Mambo. This is 5 inches square, and this piece is 5 inches by 4.5. And don't worry, I'm going to put the cutting diagrams for these onto my blog, and also I will put them around about here. As well as those, I'm going to be using the tufted dynamic embossing folder. I've got a piece of Melon Mambo for stamping on. I'm going to use the Picture Perfect birthday stamps, white embossing powder, Versamark ink, and I'm also using some of the Whisper White polka dot tulle ribbon. Usually when I'm scoring my card I use my Simply Scored scoreboard, but today I'm using my Stampin' trimmer because I'm also going to be doing some cutting, so it makes sense to just use the one tool. So I'm going to start by scoring my small piece of Tempting Turquoise at 3/8 of an inch, and again at 1/2 inch. This is on the long side, and I'm going to flip it round and I'm going to do the same 3/8 of an inch and 1/2 inch, and then on the long on the short side, with the short side to the top, so I'm scoring the long side, I'm just going to score that at 1/2 inch, and again at 1/2 inch. Okay, so that the shorter sides have this double scoring and the long sides have a single scoring. And I'm going to repeat that exactly the same onto my larger piece. This is the smaller of my two Melon Mambo pieces. It's the piece that measures 4.5 inches by 5, and I've measured in 1/2 inch from each of the four sides and scored, and on the top and bottom, so I'm holding this in a portrait orientation so that it's wider than it's tall. I've gone ahead with my pen and I've drawn those lines, because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put it into my trimmer, and this time I'm going to be using my cutting blade. So I've marked that, lined that up at the 1/2 inch mark there, and I'm just going to come in with my trimmer and I'm just going to cut between those two lines. So I'm creating a slit, yeah, and the same on this side. So now I have two slits in that piece. My other piece of Melon Mambo, I've just marked one pen. This is my other piece of Melon Mambo. It's 5 inches square, so it doesn't matter what's the top and what's the bottom. And I've just marked a line 1/2 inch from one side, and I'm lining that up in my trimmer, and I'm just cutting down as far as that line. And I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to start on that line at 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to trim that down. And now I'm just going to bring in my scissors, and I'm just going to cut those away. Okay, so what I have is piece that will fit inside those slots, just like that. I'm going to emboss my pieces of Coastal Cabana, and I'm going to use the tufted embossing folder, which is this one, which is a very, very lovely. With my tufted embossing folder, I'm going to emboss my pieces of Coastal Cabana with the tufted embossing folder. Now this is one of the dynamic impressions folders, and it's thicker than our normal impressions folders. So for this one I need my base platform, my piece of card inside the folder, and a cutting plate on top. Okay, so only one base plate. I'm going to go over to the Sizzix and I'm going to emboss both of these pieces of card, and then I will be back. I am back from the big shot with my nicely embossed pieces, and now I'm just trimming away the bit of cards that I'm not going to want. So I'm going up, across, and across. Okay, or alternatively I can go snip, snip, and then just trim those away. Alright, whichever way you do it, entirely up to you, it's a free choice. And I've put some tear and tape along one of the long edges of both of these pieces of card, and I'm just going to stick those down. Alright, and that's going to be the opening in the card, and the other pieces are going to be, the other edges are going to be what I use to stick to the base card. Okay, so it's going to go like that, and that's going to be the bit that you pull up. And almost more by luck than judgment, it lines up pretty well. So yeah, I'm pleased with myself about that one, because that one was unexpected. Alright, I'm going to put my polka dot ribbon trim on at this stage. So I've cut myself a nice length of it, and I want to make sure that I've got enough overlap for both pieces. Okay, so I'm going to stick this down now, and I'm going to use a liquid adhesive so that it has time to dry. Okay, I don't want anything that is going to leave a sticky residue on this side, because if I do, it will catch on the mechanism. If you prefer to use glue dots or something like that, then by all means do so, but just cover them over with a little bit of scrap card, so that you see, that's not terribly straight, is it? Go. That's actually not as central as it could be. So another good thing about using the liquid adhesive is that it is very forgiving. So yeah, I'm just going to fiddle with this for a little while till I get it where I want it. There we go. Yeah, I want to make sure that allows that to turn over like that. Okay, and now I'm going to keep these pieces reasonably lined up. And why haven't I got my silicone mat down to protect my table? Duh. It's relatively early on a Sunday morning and I'm not fully awake yet. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. Yep, that looks pretty good. Fold that that over to make sure that it's okay when it's in that position. Okay, and I'm going to leave that for the glue to dry. Now I can start putting it all together. I've got tear and tape along the top and bottom of the piece that I cut the slits in, and I just took a stub of candle and I rubbed up and down along the edges of the slits just to lubricate it a bit, and just to make my pull-up piece, whoops, throwing things away, just to make my pull-up piece work a little bit better. And I did trim this piece down because when I tried putting it all together, it was actually too long. So I've chopped about 1/2 inch off the top of that, and I will adjust the cutting diagram accordingly. All right, so the diagram will be correct. What I told you at the beginning was wrong. So I've got one of my my backing pieces, my white pieces. Now, tell you a secret, I'm not using Whisper White for this because you're not going to see it. I'm not stamping on it, and I'm just using my ordinary, you know, some cheap card that I picked up somewhere, right? Because I want to keep my Whisper White for my very, very best. All right, so now when I do that, that slides up and down, and it's not going to come out, it's not going to pop, it's not going to pop out anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in my I keep wanting to say Tempting Turquoise. It's not Tempting Turquoise, because Tempting Turquoise retired. It's Coastal Cabana. And I was so glad to see this colour come back as one of the main colours for this year, as one of our new core colours, because it was such a pretty, it was such a pretty colour, it is such a pretty colour, but when it was one of our in colours, I mean, it was one of the in colours, the first year I joined Stampin' Up, it was one of the ones that it had been around for a year, and it still had the rest of the year to run. So I got to play with it, I think, for about 6 months, and then it was gone. And there it was, gone. Okay, I'm putting my tear and tape on these pieces here while I've got the tear and tape in my hand. You know, might as well, isn't it? And I'm making sure I'm keeping the tear and tape on the outer side. I'm not going over those little 1/8 of an inch channels, because those 1/8 of an inch scores will really, really help me. It will give the mechanism room to move. All right. So this goes that way up, and I'm going to take the tape off the backing, line everything up, and pop that down, and I'm going to fold these pieces around so I have a channel, a gusset, a spine, whatever you want to call it, okay? Because that will allow room for the slider to operate without getting in the way of anything. Same again. Okay, so now when I pull on that, that slides up nice and easily. And I've got a rogue bit of ribbon there. Okay. So now for the top, just trim away that piece because I don't need it. Right, so it goes that way up. Duh. Right, now let me see. Let me have a think. Okay. So now for the top, I'm going to put some tear and tape along here. I'm going to be quite generous with it. Takes off the backing. And I'm going to rub a little bit of liquid adhesive around as well, because that will give me 1, wiggle room, and 2, a little bit of extra confidence when it comes to pulling the slider up. There we go. As I was putting that together, I realised that I'd put the tape on the wrong side, so I came in with my trusty lighter fluid and took the tape off. And while I was at it, I also padded out the card here with a couple of the offcuts from the slider piece, just to give it a little bit more of a weighty and substantial feel. So I'm now going to make sure that that is all lined up at the front. And once I'm happy with that, I can take the backing off of the tear and tape. Come on, there you go. And I can bring in my backer piece. And I'm keeping on checking that my parcel still closes up at the back here. And, oops, come on, there you go. And that everything fits together the way I want it to. So I want to put this onto the card backer. I've got tear and tape on the back of the lower piece, and I'm going to bring up my card base, and this is why I put that extra fold in. So once I'm happy that it's where I want it, I can take away these extra pieces, the backer. Okay, and now I can stand my card up, but I can still pull it up to reveal what's inside. And I want to do my stamping, so I'm covering my card with some embossing buddy. I've got my stamp mounted up on my block, coming in with my Versamark ink pad, and I'm taking the pad to the stamp, lots of light tapping, lining that up on my card, and I've got my squishy mat underneath. Some people like a pricking mat. I find a silicone mat works just fine for me, and while I've been talking, that ink has had time to transfer. So I'm going to bring in my embossing powder, and I'm just going to give that a nice layer of powder. Make sure I've got it where I want it, and I haven't got it where I don't want it. And I'm going to bring in my embossing gun, my heat gun, turn it on to high speed, and heat this up. I've decided I'm going to punch this out, and I'm going to use the everyday label punch, and I left that off the supplies list at the beginning because I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to use it. So I'm going to fit this into the jaws of the punch, make sure I've got it reasonably centered. I don't want to chop off any part of it. Go! Woo! I'm going to stick this to the front of the card with a glue dot. And maybe a couple of glue dots. Okay, so I'm going to put that around about there. And I've tied a bow in the polka dot ribbon. And I'm going to get another glue dot. And we're going to pop that on there when the glue dot decides to cooperate. Come on, glue dot. Don't mess me around now. Go. And there we are. So all I have to do now is to take my gift card and again with a couple of glue dots making sure I don't stick them on anything that might invalidate the card. Alright, and let's pop that inside where I want it. And there we are, that is now ready to be sent. And there it is, there is my finished gift card holder, and if I want to, I can stand that up on the mantelpiece and I can still get at the pull tab to reveal the gift card within. But that is it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if so, I would love it if you came back and saw me again sometime. But for now, once again, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.